Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Developer Council. Think of this as a bi-weekly or weekly series where we talk about the latest things that are happening in the field of computer science. I'm talking anything from cyber, front-end, back-end, 3D engines, whatever you name it. It's computer science, IoT devices, there's a lot of things going on. The field is always advancing, there's always new things going on, so I figured this would be a great way to just, keep up. Not with everything, but with the things that are probably noteworthy of saying, and just talking about cool new tools that are also coming out to help us do what we do all day, every day, which is code. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So how are we going to kick this video off? Well, last week Nvidia had their GTC annual conference. This is a conference for developers, for AI enthusiasts, for graphics card enthusiasts, where Nvidia introduced all the new things they were up to this year. And some key-worthy things happened that are worth mentioning. One is their vision, I would say, for their Omniverse software platform. We usually think of Nvidia as this graphics cards company, but they truly want to revolutionize the internet and, I guess, computer software as we know it. Their idea of the metaverse is a little bit different than Facebook's. When they say in the metaverse, they want to create a new internet, essentially, where every company has the opportunity to, instead of making websites, which are 2D places, they want companies to be able to have 3D spaces for customers to come and interact with their products that they're making. So you could think of going to the Lowe's website, going to the Amazon website, you're going out and you're trying to buy new things. What Nvidia envisions is the ability for us to go into a 3D world and interact with those products before actually buying them. And this is also great from an engineering standpoint because engineers will have the ability to create the products in a very realistic simulated environment and see how that product will react. And they call these digital twins in the sense that, every product could have a digital twin. It could be tested. It could be interacted with before actually hitting the market. So that is a very interesting space. Nvidia also announced that they will be developing a CPU. And that's pretty huge. I mean, they also announced that they're making their 4000 series graphics cards, which is going to be just double the performance of the 3000 graphics cards. But now they want to make a CPU that can interact more well with high performance computing in the cloud. This will just, revolutionize AI a little bit more, make your AIs run quicker, make them render faster. Nothing too crazy here. I think we'll be waiting for 2024 to see this actually make it into the market, but it is something worthy to note. I think the biggest takeaway from that GTC conference in general was the fact that Nvidia is pushing the boundary for performance. A lot of companies these days, I feel like, are trying to solve the green energy problem, trying to make things less power efficient, which is great, and trying to make things less expensive. Nvidia said, that's great, but we're going to push the boundary and continue to make high-performance computing a reality, which is fun to see. As a software engineer, we've had these clock speeds on CPUs that have always been stagnant for a while, but it's good to see that one company out there is just trying to keep on advancing it. So that's super cool. The next thing we're going to talk about is Azure Orbital Cloud. And what does this all mean? Well, the Orbital Cloud is essentially a ground station that Azure has been working on to allow one-hop low latency from anywhere on the planet to the cloud. This is also in collaboration with SpaceX, Elon Musk's baby. And where this kind of comes into play is, you can imagine if you're off the grid, if you're, for here they have fire departments. If you're off the grid trying to handle things, we can have cloud apps now that could potentially help, first responders and, people sailing across the Atlantic Ocean, people in disastrous regions where the internet infrastructure gets taken down, that can still access the cloud. This is, Azure Space. It's a something new they've been working on for the past 2 years, but it seems like they're finally in a preview state now, where we'll have these, these orbital ground stations that allow you to access the cloud via 5G signals, which is very cool. I can already see it now. These cars running around with orbital stations. If you're an RV experienced liver, you could have a Azure orbital ground station and still develop. I don't know the exact use cases for this, but it seems like it has a lot of potential, especially working with SpaceX and all that jazz. The next thing I'd like to talk about is a tool that a friend actually messaged me about. It seems to be one of the hot new topics coming out. It's called Replit. And what this is an in-browser IDE that allows real-time collaboration, kind of like, Google Docs. They even, say it here, Google Docs, which I find funny that that's the standard that everyone refers to. GitHub integration, a lot of languages are now supported. But, this is a browser IDE, which means that you can essentially code from anywhere. You can code on your mobile phone. You can code on the laptop that you're borrowing. It has its use cases here and there. I don't know about you, but I'm still going to be using VS Code and Visual Studio. But as you can see, you even have like a shell and everything. So there's a lot of potential with this, especially if you're just on vacation somewhere and you don't have like your master computer with you at the time. So yeah, Replit, a new way of collaboration. Okay, and to wrap up this episode, we're going to read a simple article from the Hacker News. I was just browsing around and I thought this was a simple article. It had a lot of good content, so let's give it a look. It's talking about the 5 network security threats and how to protect yourself. Essentially, there's like obviously a lot, but these are probably the top 5 reasons that networks get exposed. And so let's dive in and look at them. So they say number 1 is misconfiguration. And this was according a recent survey by Verizon said that 14% of breaches are actually made up from misconfiguration errors. And I can definitely say that, to my credit, yes, it is hard to configure a system securely from time to time, even if you're doing something as simple as SSL on a VM. Like, the out-of-the-box settings are usually, pretty vulnerable. You have to do a little thing here and there to make sure that your system's actually secure. And so, I guess knowing the platform, the technology that you're working with, and how to properly configure it is definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked. If it's AWS, if it's Azure, if it's a third-party software tool, just make sure that you know what you're doing, have someone on the team that knows what they're doing to configure that properly. Second is outdated software. When we're making a project from scratch, at the time, it's like, yes, this is cutting edge, this is bleeding edge. But as time goes on, you start to realize that, oh my gosh, those NPM packages are now vulnerable. That Python library had an exploit. And so we need to be able to react to these exploits that come out from time to time. The CVE list grows like 100 items a day. And they recommend getting some vulnerability scanning software to give you real-time inventory of the software which needs updating in your system. I have not ever used a vulnerability scanner before, so I don't know the exact products that are out there that could do this for you, but this is something that I'll probably look into after making this video. 3 is denial of service attack. If you're at a large bank, if you're at a large company, this is something that definitely can affect you. If you're making simple websites for the average Joe across the street, they're probably not going to get DOSed. But, if it's a big brand, then definitely have DDoS attack on your mind, because that can just stop customers from using, the website. And that means less sales. But, their recommendation here is to have a properly configured content delivery network, a CDN, and that can pretty much dissuade DOS attacks pretty well. 4 is application bugs. When we're actually writing the software, is there bugs in it? Are we making, reliable software that can last decades? I hope you are. I hope you are. There's this OWASP top 10 security vulnerability risk, and they say just essentially to review that list when it comes to making application code. And then when you're doing those final code reviews, maybe just have the OWASP top 10 list on top of your mind. And number 5 is just attack surface management. So basically keep track of the inventory and of your internet facing assets. As time goes on, obviously it is easy to forget, oh my gosh, we had this box in the basement that is still running and has some sort of service principal privileges that can do certain things. So definitely just keeping track of what is deployed and what permissions they have can lead to a nice strategy in delivering secure network applications. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was it. That was the first ever developer council delivered by yours truly, StarCoding, aka Jake. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something new. And as always, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.